Hello and welcome to another episode of Chatting with Charlie. If you hear my cat screaming in the background, it's because I have locked them in the room with me. Because I'm mean. No, because my partner is hoovering or vacuuming for non-British people? Do non-British people call it a hoover? I'm not sure. But anyway, so the cats have been locked in with me because I had to shut the door and they had to decide to either be in or out because as their cats, we played 10 minutes of in, out, in, out, in, out, and I decided in is the way to go. So if you hear any cats screaming, don't worry, that's just them trying to escape the hoover. Today I'm going to be speaking about the importance of neurodiversity in the workplace, and I'm going to focus mostly on jobs with lots of social interactions and all of the jobs where we for some reason think that neurodiverse people are worse or don't belong, or where we try to exclude them for very random reasons. So this episode I'm aiming to be positive and actually to talk about why this diversity is so crucial, not just for neurodiverse people, but actually for everyone, and how we can profit from more inclusivity in a inclusion in a society. I will be talking specifically about neurodiversity. I will probably be speaking mostly about ADHD, just because this is where I have the theoretical and personal knowledge and experience, and there are lots of disabilities that we could also talk about, where inclusion is also just as vital and important, but I would rather have an episode there where I interview someone who knows more about this than me, because I don't know, I would feel uncomfortable speaking for people who are where I know nothing about the topic, because that is not my place, and everyone should feel uncomfortable talking about things where they don't really know anything. But ho hey. Speaking of people who don't know anything, I'm going to start this episode off with the sort of the whys. Why am I talking about this? Something that I've heard very often is, why do you have to talk so much about ADHD? Why are you making it such a big part of your personality when it's all in your head? Well, yes, Karen, well done. It's almost as if that's the point, isn't it? That it's all in my head. I mean, neurodiversity, that refers to the diversities of the neurotypes, meaning the way your brain works. So, mental conditions, mental disorders, however you want to see it. Yes, it is all in my head. But that is... most of the things are all happening in your head. In fact, without your head, we'd probably all be a lot better off. No Karen shaming here. But jokes aside, so yes, mental disorders, mental conditions, it's a bit weird if you look at it now with the current definitions. Autism will be is now often referred to as autism spectrum condition, whereas ADHD still stays a disorder, although you'll often read about autism spectrum disorder, and that's why I'm kind of not sure about the terms, what people want to call it, because I think here it is actually very important the way we talk about these things. There should be a sudden change in audio quality here because I am all over the place today, and I just realised that I have forgotten to plug my microphone in, so I was recording through my not very good laptop microphone, but never mind, I am very sorry. So this episode is particularly all over the place. I swear I'm not trying to make a point. But the importance why this matters is it's the first time in history that these conditions, that these neurotypes are actually being spoken about, and it's being diagnosed a fair amount. And so, as with everything that's diagnosed more or that's talked about more, people are questioning if it's real. And there are, there are measurable brain differences, there are behavioral differences that we can very clearly tell, and it's very much real. But if you've listened to my episode about the evolutionary backgrounds of ADHD, you will know that there is a reason for all of these things, and I will not talk more about the specifics of ADHD here, because I have a whole other episode on that, because otherwise we'll be here for a very long time. But that's why I think that it is important that we think about these things in terms of, on the one hand, being like a, I don't want to say normal, but like being a very frequent neurotype, and not being any better or worse than being neurotypical, as we say, but also that every human has their struggles. But there are some very specific struggles to neurodiverse people. And I think that these struggles are very important that we talk about them, and also that we talk about them in the context of giving appropriate adaptations or accommodations where possible, and not seeing this as something to be either embarrassed about or something that diminishes a person's worth. What these accommodations or adaptations can be are very different depending on the type of person or the type of disorder we are talking about. So I keep talking about neurodiversity, and I have talked about like brain differences and that, but what the hell am I talking about when I say neurodiversity? So in pop culture, well, not really pop culture, but in most of sort of contemporary media and that, and in the internet, the poster children for neurodiversity are autism and ADHD. But here in an article by Forbes magazine, they also include dyslexia, ADHD, Tourette syndrome. Then there's acquired neurodiversity, generally mental health, autism, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and dyslexia. Although many of these things can overlap, I have also seen epilepsy counted as being neurodiverse. And that's why I said, so I'm going to focus on things that I know about. And then again, so maybe the situations will be different, and so what are reasonable accommodations? Maybe someone with extreme dyscalculia probably won't become a maths professor. I mean, I'm sure there are, again, people that can do it anyway. I'm sure there are great writers who have dyslexia, but I just think it's really important that we remove stigma, and that we sort of see these as normal, real variations rather than like a burden to society, but still addressing the individual problems. So I want to talk about the positives of the workplace, and I will get there in a minute. But I've been talking about adaptations or accommodations so far. And I think these are really, really important because they can help sort of level the playing field. So at my university, they're actually called a Nachteilsausgleich, so a compensation of disadvantages. And I think this is something that's really, really important to understand. It is about compensating disadvantages rather than, I don't know, making it unfair or giving people better, easier solutions, or giving them things for free, because that's not what it. The way I like to explain this to people is with a very easy to understand example. So my girlfriend is quite small. She's not that small, and she's always annoyed when I talk about how small she is. So big kiss, babe. Anyway, so she's fairly small. She's 1 meter 57 centimeters. Although she always tells me it's 1 meter 59, but we measured her and she's 1 meter 57. So, that's fairly small, but not incredibly small. So it's very much in the normal variation of sizes, but she is too small to be able to reach the top shelf in our cupboard, for example. And because she's small, we decided that we were going to get her a stool so that she can stand on the stool, and now she can reach the top cupboard. And she's not embarrassed by this stool. No one questions what this stool is for. But then also, what this has done is it has taken away her disadvantage. So she's been given this stool, and then she can stand on it and she can reach things. Wonderful. But now some of my friends are really, really tall, and if I gave them this stool, they would just hit their head on the ceiling, and it wouldn't help them. And then, so in this system, people come and they say, oh, but I want a stool, everybody needs a stool. And that doesn't help, because not everyone who has this stool is then helped by it. And what different people need are different things. And I think this is also a very important concept to understand. So just because it helps her be able to reach doesn't mean that it will necessarily help every other person who can't reach, because people might have a different reason for not being able to reach the top shelf of the cupboard. They might be disabled, they might have fine motor skill problems, or whatever. They might have arthritis in their hands. A billion different reasons why they can't reach. So our metaphorical stool won't help everyone, but in order to level the playing field, we want to give everyone the chance to reach up to the top shelf and get the items down that they need. And this metaphorical tool is what this compensation of disadvantages is supposed to be. So at uni the other day, I had a conversation with a professor, and I'm not going to get into any details here, but basically this was a person who was in charge, and they had the audacity to tell me that even though I know my rights, and I looked it all up, they had the audacity to tell me that it was completely unreasonable and unfair towards everyone else that I was asking for a compensation of disadvantages. Just generally. And that's not true, because it's not fair it's not unfair towards other people. It's unfair towards me if I start out with a disadvantage. Yes, anyway, so I've been talking about disadvantages, and I've not really made it sound very positive so far, have I? But I just wanted to illustrate that these differences that we have don't necessarily make us bad people, because whereas Anya can't reach the top shelf, she is also very small. So if something falls behind the washing machine, she can crawl behind, whereas most people don't fit. So those are Anya's talents. She can't reach the top shelf, but she can climb behind the washing machine. Ladies and gentlemen, my partner, I'm really good at being a hype woman. If anyone needs me as a wing woman, I will set you up, because I'm incredibly good at pushing people. Oh dear. I'm sorry. So, there are just these differences between people, and there are differences between all people, and everyone has things where they are at a disadvantage for something. And I'm not even talking about systemic failures such as racism and sexism, and how all of these things play into our life, because that's a whole different story. But there are differences between all individuals, and everyone will have a situation where they won't be able to do something for some reason or another, or it's something that they're just not capable of doing, or for whatever reason. And then Yeah, hopefully, in an ideal world, some solution, some compromise will be found so that they are able to either delegate the task or that there is a way that it can be done. But so why do we sort of lump all neurodivergent people together? Well, why we're doing it here is obviously every person with ADHD or whatever is unique, but some of the struggles are fairly a unanimous experience. So yeah, the sort of baseline difficulties are very similar in many people. So if we have an idea of what we can do for this group as a whole, obviously you'll then again have to find individual ways to adapt this. And just because someone has ADHD doesn't mean that they will need all of these or maybe even any of these adaptions. But if I go back to my metaphorical stool, so we can say if small people get a stool to reach up to the top shelf, but then there's differences in height, there's differences in how high is the top shelf, what sort of shoes is the person wearing, whatever. So again, the specifics need to be done for person to person. But I think that we have these adaptions is absolutely essential so that people who have their unique struggles can get these addressed, because when we don't have to overcome incredible barriers, people can profit from us as people. So there is this notion that people who are neurodivergent are stupid. Not this notion, this ridiculous idea. And everyone's sort of lumped together as stupid. And, well, where does this come from? Well, on the one hand, that maybe we don't fulfill all societal expectations of what a clever human is supposed to be like in terms of presentation, but also, education. I mean, in our society where we are obsessed with academia, academia is obviously the way to show that you are a smart person, and if you do not have a degree, you are stupid. And everyone's voices who do not have a degree are worthless. It's much better to listen to the white dude who has studied I don't know, women's rights 50 years ago. Let's have him make decisions about reproduction rights of women. Anyway, and then I've seen more proof that neurodivergent people are stupid because they are more likely to be kicked out of university. So even though many people do start, I'm not sure if this figure is correct, to be honest, but if you've seen Atypical, they have this scene where they say that only one out of 5 autistic students at uni succeeds, and with ADHD I've seen very similar numbers. That you're not likely to succeed and you are sort of already set up for failure. And the system isn't really on your side, that is true, but it's not because people with ADHD are stupid, because they have also done studies that show that if the appropriate accommodations are given, then suddenly these major differences, they are completely negligible and they are no longer major differences. So if we actually take time to make the system slightly fairer for everyone, everyone would be better off. The other sort of weird thing that we hear is that neurodiverse people don't know how to conduct themselves in society. So they're all antisocial and weird and loud and obnoxious and, just not very pleasant to be around. So it's easier to sort of say, oh yes, you're stupid, and not really think about it any further. But I want to start talking about the positives by talking about myself. Oh, this is going to be good. So now it's just going to be me being conceited, really, telling you how incredible I am at my job. No, hear me out though, because I think personal anecdotes make these things a lot easier to understand what I am trying to get at. Because, that's how human brains work. We don't really like facts and figures that much. even though we pretend we do. We pretend that we like facts and figures because it makes us feel very smart, but actually we prefer personal anecdotes. I mean, the social brain hypothesis states that one of the reasons why we have such big brains is for gossiping. And there are also many studies that show that, coming back to our professors, that even the elite of society, our professors, they were secretly observed in the lunch hall, and the vast majority was gossiping about other colleagues or talking about other humans rather than engaging in academic conversation outside of the lecture hall. So all of these things that we have to pretend that we don't enjoy, we are very much allowed to enjoy, and life doesn't have to be about facts and figures. Facts and figures are fun to some extent, but anyway, I have completely lost my train of thought. Oh yes, I was going to tell you how wonderful I am at my job. No, sorry. I work as a tutor, and I was always slightly embarrassed, if I'm honest, because I felt like all of my friends had much more prestige-worthy jobs, and some of the images of what it means to be successful that we hear every day were also stuck in my head and also internalized by me, I'm not going to lie. And I didn't feel like my job was very worthy because, I'm not even a real teacher, and I'm not doing anything highly academic that you need a million qualifications for. But I enjoy it, and there was a long time when I pretended that I didn't because I was too embarrassed. But I also felt like I wasn't worthy of in my stupid idea of a proper job, a worthy job, because I wasn't those things, and no one would ever want me anyway. So at work, as I tutor lots of people, I have been warned of people that are autistic or who have ADHD, and these are seen as the difficult students. And there are some unique challenges that maybe you don't have if you're not used to this way of thinking. But I love working with these children because I think it's, on the one hand, it's fun, it's novel, it's not the same thing every day, and it's a challenge for me, which sort of keeps me going because I had to learn all of the grammar rules myself because, as I'm a native English speaker, I never actually had to learn them, and now suddenly teaching English as a foreign language, I need to learn all of the grammar. So that was quite good at the beginning, but then it got a bit monotonous and a bit boring. So I always like to engage in a challenge, but it saddens me that these people are immediately deemed, oh yes, they're difficult and challenging, and it's almost seen as something negative. Well, not almost. It is very often seen as something negative. And you can do as much technical, theoretical research as you want. If you understand how someone's brain works, it's always going to be easier for you. So by being able to properly get into the minds of these children, I have been able to adapt lesson plans and get through to people who had severe difficulties before. And the reason why I did this is because I enjoy my job. I think it's very rewarding. I think it's very rewarding seeing people improve, seeing people get better, and most importantly, actually finding love for the language and for the material. I had one girl who I taught, in the holidays, I taught a course, and we had great fun. We learned about the political system in America, and I learned tons, to be honest, and we had a really good time. And she agreed that actually English can be quite fun, because I'm not the type of person, I have a bit of a problem with authority. I'm not a good authority figure, I have the problem that people don't really listen to me that much. And I'm not going to go in there and scream at people. That's just not the way I am. So if people really need disciplining, it is hard for me to work with them. But I have also learned that actually most people where we say, oh, they need disciplining, don't actually need disciplining. They need to be understood and heard and listened to. But yeah, here, so we did it in a very sort of fun, casual way. And actually, by, making it interactive, by admitting that I didn't know everything that I was, that I didn't know everything about American politics either, to be honest, because it's very complicated. We got a good thing going, and seeing the way someone's eyes light up when they understand something, or when they feel accomplished, or even just laughing with someone at a stupid mistake or whatever. There's such a nice sense of community, and I think we can really profit from people who think differently to the norm. So this is something that I've been criticizing a lot in therapy. This is just a quick excursion. But so to become a therapist is very, very expensive. And basically the people who can become therapists are mostly straight, white, upper middle class people, at least here in Austria. And I'm sure lots of these therapists are very, very good and are very, very good at their job, but these people will never know what it's like to be sexuality or gender or the ethnicity or whatever. And that's why I think having, so as important as it is to have more diversity here in therapy, just in terms of sort of demographics, I think in all of life, having neurodiversity is so important, because we can get completely new ways of seeing things. We can have a completely new perspective of things that, people with ADHD are notoriously known for their, I think more by breakfast time than you think in a day. So basically by lots and lots and lots and lots of interconnected thoughts, and completely not interconnected thoughts. But this can give us novel perspectives. This can help us see things in a way that we hadn't seen it before. Another really important thing is neurodiversity is real, and every form of diversity in life, more diversity is always better, but the more that people are confronted with being in a diverse surrounding or in a diverse setting, the less likely they are to be prejudiced against certain groups. And if we sort of ostracize neurodiverse people and always tell them they're not good enough and they're not, not whatever enough, well, it's not just the neurodiverse people themselves who hear these things, but it's everyone around them. And it can make it very easy to believe that there is something wrong with these people, and to be sort of prejudiced, and then to treat them as if they are worth less or whatever. And if you are, I don't want to say forced to, because that makes it sound so negative, but if you are able to interact with someone who is neurodiverse from whenever, then you will actually see that all of this is utter nonsense. And I'm saying this here as if neurodiverse people are like the Loch Ness monster. I'm sure you have talked to a neurodiverse person before, because unlike in popular media, not every, it's not as visible or as obvious or as stereotypical as we think it is. And sort of piggybacking off this, the more time we spend with a diverse group of people, the more we'll realize that actually all problem solving also needs to be diverse. So if we go back to the therapist, who is a lovely, straight, white, middle-aged lady who was very competent in her field, she still probably won't, or not probably, she won't be able to understand the struggles of a young trans man, for example. And she will have to overcome adversity in her life, and she will have unique struggles. But yeah, problems that some groups of people face are systemic, and it's just a very, very different thing than the struggles that she might face. And this is really important, because as soon as we see more diversity in general, then the more likely we are to think of, or to try and problem solve in a more inclusive, diverse way, and realize that actually, just because now our society is sort of very much adapted for a very specific type of person, that this is not set in stone, and that some of the disadvantages that neurodiverse people have now, they're not a given. They're not because there's something wrong with these people per se. It's just that they are struggling within the given system, within the given setting. And that is something that's really, really important to remember. Then, I mean, all sorts of people have all sorts of talents. But again, so particularly, I mean, with autistic people, we associate the field of special interest. And this is something that also in ADHD is very, very common, that people will hyper-focus on something that really interests them and will become really, really good at it. And then ideally, if you choose a job, or if you're able to pursue a job doing something that you really like, then yeah, chances are that this is an incredibly talented person who might just outshine everyone else, because they will do what they're doing with 110% passion and interest. Someone who is autistic, who may be more likely to engage in very much rule-based, logical thinking, again, will have many strengths and many ways to view things that aren't that maybe aren't like the norm, which can be again an incredible advantage. And if you have listened to my episode about ADHD and the evolutionary roots, again, we saw that there was an evolutionary advantage to having ADHD, and that it is sort of merely I don't want to say maladaptation, because it's not a maladaptation per se, but it's just an evolutionary mismatch. So the surroundings don't really fit the neurotype of the person, rather than there being something inherently wrong with us, which is something that's very, very important, that we see these things. So there are great levels of creativity, there are great levels of talent, and it can be very dangerous, very difficult, very problematic if we sort of say, oh, a whole group of people are worthless or unimportant or anything like that. And I feel like I've been rambling on for long enough. I hope that there were some points that spoke to you, and I'm really sorry, I am a bit tired. I feel like it's not been my most coherent episode so far. But what I did want to end this with is a poem, because sometimes we can all feel like we're not good enough, and I think imposter syndrome is a problem for very many people. But if you've been going your whole life being made to feel like you're not good enough, like you don't belong in this society, like there's not a place for you, then your imposter syndrome can be can be very big and be something that can hinder you. So if you don't know what imposter syndrome is, it basically means that you feel like that everything that you've achieved has sort of just happened by chance and luck, and that you're sort of an imposter in your own life and that you don't deserve any of this. So I thought what we should do is embrace our imposter syndromes, and that's why I wrote a humorous, hopefully, poem about it. Embracing your imposter syndrome. I am a master of deception. I don't know how I got here without knowledge or skills. No wisdom or cleverness made me go in for the kill. Fake it till you make it. That is my deal. And I have fooled you all, and I did a damn good job too. Told my shrink I was scared that deep down I'm bad, and being good was only make-believe. She assured me if I were really bad, then why would I care? Why would thoughts torment me, fill me with despair? Bad people don't think about if they're bad. Oh no, I fooled her too. Spent years studying the psyche as top of her field, only to meet me and let down her shield. Slithered in like a snake. Made her think I'm good when really I'm bad. So misunderstood. I am the master of chaos. If you can't do, teach. So teaching I am, and the act carries on. Pretend to know enough to get you through all your stuff. I know enough obscure facts to take you aback, make you think that I'm smart, for that is my art. Deception. I hope you enjoyed my awkward poem about embracing our imposter syndrome and thinking, well, I am the master of deception, and I have faked it till I made it. And there you go. Here I am talking about a podcast and how important inclusion is. Things that I was so scared to talk about because I was so scared of what that could mean for me. Because then people, they might assume that maybe I'm not neurotypical, and then what would that mean? And now I talk about it very openly because I don't think it's something embarrassing at all, and I think it's something really important that we talk about. So thank you very much for listening.